Hey, what's up, comrades? Moving on. Oh, excuse me. Volume 4 of Solo Leveling. Excellent book. Series continues to be excellent. And it's funny because I don't talk about this book. I guess I talk about it in here. But Google started feeding me all these Google adverts for I guess there's an anime and another anime coming out of this. And then there's some other bullshit or whatever, and another series called Ragnarok or something. I don't know. I just want to get through these light novels. Or I guess it's a web novel because it's Korean, but don't quote me on any of that. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and this is Volume 4 of Solo Leveling. We pick up with Jinwoo as he gets all the goodies from the Demon Monarch in the castle. He gets that thing he needs to make that potion to help his mom, so he makes 6 of those because his intelligence skill is so fucking high that he just gets a whole bunch. And then he gets a 3-hour cooldown skill that lets him trade places with a shadow monster wherever they're at. And he uses the shit out of that. It's really good. He uses it immediately just to check it out, and then he continues to use it. It's almost like a plot point in a couple points. So next he goes to the hospital, cures his mom. They hug it out. He calls his sister. His sister comes in. They're crying and happy, and the doctor's like, the fuck? Anyway, there's a meeting about this attack force that's going to go on the island, Dr. Ko, not Dr. Ko, President Ko, feels a strong disturbance, in the force. I don't know what else to call it. He's just oh, I feel a disturbance in the mana configuration of something, something, something. And then elsewhere, a couple S-rank guys are drinking, the guy who's retired and one of the guys talking about this invasion of the Ant Island that they're going to go be a part of. So everything's good with the mom. She's doing great. She drinks the potion, the sister shows up, they cry it out. Korea finally officially accepts the offer of Japan to reach out for help, and then Japan sends some guys over to see how they're doing and what's going on. And he's the guy who comes is this Ryoji guy or something. He's a real asshole. Also, the dragon that he captured from the Demon Monarch and turned into a shadow beast that he rides around. There's a video of it, and Jin gets kind of called out about it, and he's like, ruh-roh, I gotta be a little more careful with that. Because can't just be riding a dragon. Nobody even knows, what's going on with this shit. So, and so President Ko shows up at the hospital, talks to him, or he goes to talk to President Ko, and he invites him to be a part of this task force that's going to go out, but we don't hear his decision right at that point. But he does see, or Ko gets shown the video of the ant who escaped, killing all the people in Japan. And at that point, Jin is Ko shows Jin the video of the ants, and he's huh. Because he decides he's not going to go be a part of this whole situation. He's going to stay home and hang out with his mom, who just recovered, and make sure she's okay and stuff. So he's no, I can't go to that. They'll be fine, I'm sure. But then he feels a disturbance in the force, which is there's a S rank. There's a gym where hunters can go and practice and stuff, and it's very safe, and it has all sorts of items and whatnot. And you have to make a reservation, and you go practice and do whatever. But S-rank hunters can kind of just roll in there whenever they want. And so all of the Korean S-rank hunters are there, and the Japanese guy I was telling you about, Ryoji, he's there, and he's Ryoji's very oh, these guys are all pieces of shit. I'm way better than any of these guys. This is why Korea can't kill the Ant Island, and yada 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 yada. And then Jin shows up, and Ryoji's Merc, because his mana's so strong. And he gets someone asks him, it's oh, hey, what are you? And he's what do you mean? He's I bet you're an assassin because I didn't feel you sneaking up on me or something, and you can repress your mana and something. And Jin's oh, no, I'm a mage. And he's what? And then they watch somebody fight, and that's when Ryoji, challenges him to fight. And Jin beats the shit out of him and almost kills him before he's stopped. And then the Japanese guy heads out, and we find out that Jin, he officially announces he's not participating in the island, and he has no motivation for it. Later in the evening, his sister gets accosted by this serial killer that Jin prepared her for with the shadow monsters earlier. So Jin feels the presence of the monster, the shadow guys are hey, this guy's here, we want to do something about it. He's yeah. So he shadow jumps, intercepts the serial killer, doesn't kill him, but sticks an orc on him, and if he decides to ever kill again, he will be killed. And then he continues to just like work out, do daily quests, get stronger. His little assistant homie gets him an office and tells him that the guild needs 3 people to be legit, and that they need to find 1 more. So he thinks about the high school girl, and then he thinks about, who does he think about? He's like, oh, we could get the high school girl, yeah, or someone else. Continuing onward, the operation begins. It starts and it goes pretty well for the Korean team from their perspective at first. They have an A-rank camera guy who's coming along with them just to kind of like film for all the people in Korea so they can feel good and stuff. And we get some side stories, like 1 or 2, about like people who are like their kids were killed, their family were killed on the island during like the raids or whatever, and so they just want Korea to get like revenge, and they're very sad that it's like failed thus far. And this is like a real moral booster because Korea's been like really sad about this whole situation. Anyway, they go through the tunnels. The Japanese does their job and like clears everybody out. And before they can like abandon Korea, we don't get there yet. So then the Korean team, they find some hatched egg, and they find this giant hatched egg. And like, well, that doesn't bode well. Eventually, they reach the queen. They beat the queen and her bodyguards. Back at the Japanese team, they wanted to leave before all this went down, which is like okay, but they were like, hey, we're missing a team. We got to go find them. So they go to find that team, and they get murked pretty hard because they find the team with all their heads just like ripped off their bodies. And then if you're starting to put pieces together, it's like, okay, the giant egg in the queen's chamber, and these people with their heads ripped off, and like ruh-roh, things are gonna go bad real fast here. Back to the Korean team, they're like, yay, we killed the queen and celebrate. But right before the queen died, she lets out this crazy call for help. And then this King Ant guy, who's the guy who like ripped off all the heads of the Japanese guys and honestly it killed them. And killed the guys who showed up. He gets summoned out. So he comes and beats the shit out of like everybody, and he kills like I thought he killed 2 of the hunters, but no, he like really hurt Cha, or what's her name, the female hunter, and then he like kills the healing hunter. But he doesn't kill her. He just knocks her out, but she's pretty injured, like in 1 hit. She's like the most powerful S-rank hunter besides Jin. He then demands the head of the king, so they tell him... yeah, that's right. So Ryoji and the Japanese guys, they find the 3rd team, like, what the fuck? And then, because the queen summoned the king ant, he shows up, beats the shit out of them, demands for the king, and they're like, well, Ryoji's the king. Who's that? That's the guy with the Japanese guys. And he's like, all right, bye. And so the ant king flies off to the Japanese team, beats the shit out of them, and the Korean team starts to get overwhelmed by just like all the ants that are around. Of course, at this point, guess who shows up? Bum ba bum! It's Jinwoo! He shows up. He ruins all the king ants fun. He kills like all the ants. He summons like all his like 1,000 of shadow minions or however many he's got. They're like running around the whole island just like massacring ants. And then the king ant shows up and he's like, "You're the king!" And then most of this chapter, this is like chapter 5 at this point, it's just like Jin and the king ant like fighting, and Jin like mopping up all the ants, and the king ant is like OP as fuck, but Jin is Jin. He's he's like not messing around. So they punch, and then there's daggers and claws, and then more minions, and then fatal strike, which just like turns into mutilation, and then it's mutilation, and then mutilation beats. It just fucking massacres this Ant King guy, and then Jin's like, all right, everybody, let's let me take care of you, and then you can all leave, and then I can summon this guy as my minion. Excuse me. So, the girl is like pretty bad, and if they don't get her help like right now, and really good help, then she's gonna die. So then Jin makes the executive decision to resurrect the healer hunter, as a shadow guy, who then smiles, heals Hunter Cha, I think, so that she's okay. And while he's doing this, he demands that the recorder gets turned off. He's like, man, you better fucking turn that thing off, or I'm gonna break it. And they're like, okay. Then he gets everybody to like travel back to Seoul. Meanwhile, he just like clears the island of ants. He gets up to like level 100, and then he summons what does he call him? He summons the Ant King, and he calls him like Borel, Beryl, something like that. And this guy's a level 1 general, so he can talk. And so they have like a little chit chat, and then he resurrects the queen, and it's like, I feel weaker, like I can't control as many minions. And then the king ant is like, oh yeah, she's like a control minion, so she's gonna help control like your forces or whatever. And he's like, oh, I don't want that. And he like gets rid of her. He's like, give her to that shit. That's not gonna help. That's not what I want. I want all the experience for myself. So then he's like, all right, we cleared this island up, let's roll. And he summons his dragon and gets the fuck out of there. So back at Korea headquarters, Hunter Cha is doing great. And President Ko's like, he's like, what the fuck? I thought she was like dead. So he's shocked. And in Japan, they're not pleased because the king ant killed like all their top hunters. They didn't kill all the hunters. I think they had like 22 and he killed like, I don't know, 11. But all of their best hunters are like dead. I can't. They say at some point it's like 5 to 11 or something. I don't remember. So they're like ruh-roh. And then in America, the American Association hears about Jin, and then they're like, oh man, we need to get that guy the fuck over here because we're American, we're the best, and we're just gonna go throw a bunch of money at him. And then they get Tung, who's the Korean guy. Like, hey, we need to get this Tung guy over there to like get this Jin guy because they're both Korean, so maybe you can talk him into it. And that doesn't happen. But it seems like he's a nation. There's like nation ranked hunters. There's like S rank hunters and then national ranked hunters. And he's one. America's got like 2 of them, and there's like 5 in the whole world or something. Anyway, America's got 2. He's one of them, and then the other one is like the leader of like the Scab Guild or something, which is even better than us. At this point, Jen is he heads back to he like clears the island, summons Beryl or whatever, the Ant King, and then he heads to the association, and there he's like, I need to talk to President Ko, right? Meow. And President Ko is at the hospital with Hunter Cho, or Cha, or whatever her name is, and he's like, wow, she's making like a miraculous recovery. This is very impressive. I can't believe all this stuff's happening. It's very miraculous. Something. He also notices that Jin's mom is just like there or not there, and the doctor's like, oh yeah, Jin came in the other day and then she like got better and they both left and now she's doing great. And he's like, the fuck, like what? Goodness gracious, Car, what is going on? Sorry about that. So meanwhile, so then Ko's like, oh, I better go talk to Jin, so he heads off. Meanwhile, there's like an American hunter in town. This is the guy I was talking about before. He's the national hunter who's like the head of the Scabs Guild, who's the guild that is like the #1 guild in America, and he's like a national hunter, and I think he's in the same guild as that Tung guy who wants to kill Jin and got the shit beat out of him by Jin's dad. Who knows where that guy went? Is he walking to Korea through the ocean? It's taking a sweet ass time to get here. Anyway, but he is like, I know Tung wants to like fight this guy, but you know, maybe we can see if we can get him over here, or like, I don't know if Tung can take him, or like it'd be interesting to see. But if he hurts Tung's my guy, so I would fight him. Meanwhile, the Knights Guild, which is the #5 guild in Korea, they don't have any S-rank hunters, which is wrong for them. And the army are going to the island to pick up any dead bodies and remains and pick up the essence stones and do all that good stuff. Do like a collection now that Jin like went to the island and like completely cleared it. While they're there, they see this like strange man who gives them a weird look, like in the ant cave. And they're like, I thought this place was cleared. Who is this guy? And they're like, hey. And then the guy is about to do something crazy, and then a guy behind him shows up and like snaps his fingers, and everyone like falls asleep. And then they have like a bizarre conversation about like shit that's going on that we're like not privy to at this moment. And then he's like, hey, leave this place alone. What's his name's here? I feel his essence. And this is his business, so let's not worry about it. And then something. I thought we were going to kill something or do something. And like, oh, yeah, I guess we'll get to that later or something. Very mysterious. And then they both like create portals and like leave, or create gates or something. Back in Korea, or I guess where I was in Korea, back with Jin. Jin in his room, he looks up his new daggers and sword, like the Demon Monarch daggers and then the Demon Monarch sword. And then he notices there's a shiny thing in his inventory. And that shining thing is the key he had before, the mysterious key. They didn't know what it did. We don't really get too much into that right now, because Jin, at the beginning of Chapter 8, heads to the funeral of the healing guy. And he's there, and the mom of the character of the healing guy is like really sad. And she comes up and like bows, like very Korean kind of stuff. And everyone's like embarrassed for her because she's showing emotion in public or some bullshit. And, and then he finds out from President Ko at that point, because the assistant keeps being like, hey, you need to go do the paperwork at the association so that we can start the guild. And then he talks to President Ko about it, and President Ko's like, you're an Esoteric hunter. You don't need shit to start a guild. You want to be a guild? You're a guild. Just send the paperwork in and we'll make it happen. And he's like, oh, cool. Thanks. And then he talks to the assistant about naming the guild, and at first he calls it like solo leveling, which is funny. It changes later. While he's out and about, he gets approached by the Americans, and so they're like, hey, we want to chit chat with you, and we have some information you might be interested in. And he's like, yeah, all right, fuck it, let's go see what's going on. So he heads over to like their suite, and they bring in this woman, and this woman has the power to like upgrade abilities, which is like a very, 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 very secret like hunter ability. And so no one knows about it, like not even like the president of the United States, just like the president of the Hunters Association and like his inner circle, which is the people who are here. Anyway, so they explain the whole thing, and they're very mysterious about it. And he's like, and Jin's very skeptical. But he's like, that's why America's the best, and that's how we have so many like national hunters and all this stuff. And then he's like, all right, well, I don't know. I don't want to sign anything because I don't really believe it. And then she's like, I'll give you a taste for free, and then we know for a fact that you'll join. And he's like, free taste? Yeah, all right, let's see this. And so she looks him in the eyes, and then she freaks the fuck out. And Jin's just sitting there being like, nothing happened. And she's like, ah! And the president of the American Association is like all embarrassed, and he's like, the fuck's happening? And Jin's like, and then like someone pulls a gun on Jin, and he just like looks at him like, the fuck are you gonna do with that? And then the president of the association, like, he like bows, and he's like, please, 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 put the fucking guns away, you assholes. Like, what do you think you're doing? And then Jin, I'm so sorry. And he's like, oh no, it's no big deal. Like, whatever. What were they gonna shoot me? That's fine. They would have done nothing. And the American guy's like, oh Lord, thank God, this guy's such like a nice man, nice polite Korean man. Because like, if that had happened to like one of the other national hunters, everyone would be dead in this room. Anyway, so Jin's like, all right, well, good luck with whatever the fuck you guys are doing. I'm out. And so he leaves, and then the president of the association is like, the fuck is that? And then she's like, his powers are limitless. He's a king. We don't get a firm commitment about what that means yet. But so then we flip to President Ko is talking to the president of the Japanese Association, and that president makes a lot of demands on President Ko. And then President Ko's like, why would I give you anything? You betrayed us. And the president of Japan is like, I'm going to go tell everyone that you're making these false claims and you refuse to pay us and all this stuff. And then President Ko just like opens up his jacket and puts down like this recorder and hits play. And it's literally a recording of the Japanese guys talking about how they're going to betray Korea. And President Ko speaks like, he speaks like intermediate level Japanese, so they're having this whole conversation in Japanese, because originally they had translators, and it's like, translators leave for a second, and the president of Japan's like, what? And then he calls him out, and the president of Japan's like, oh fuck. And he's like, he's on his knees, and he's like, Lord, please God, don't tell anyone, yada yada yada. And President Ko's like, get the fuck up and get out, and don't ever bother us again. Oh my goodness. On his way home, Jin just gets like a call because there's a B rank gate that just opened in the middle of the road, and they're like, hey, can you go take care of that? And he's like, well, I don't have anybody to go with me. And President Ko or whatever is like, man, just fucking get in there and do it. And he's like, hell yeah. So he just like rolls out. He's like in a cab or something. So he rolls out, runs over, gets in the gate, and everyone's like, is that guy going by himself? And then I think it turns red. And then he just like, and then he comes out and the gate closes, and everyone's like, holy shit. And he's like, holla. When he gets to the guild, assistant's like, hey, we have an applicant, and Jin's like, oh yeah, because they need 3 people to make a guild still, I guess. And he's like, who? And he rolls out, and it's Hunter Cha. And he's like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? And she's like, I want to be in your guild. And they go back and forth because she has to like pay like $1 billion whatever Korean dollars to get out or whatever. And she's like, that's fine, I just want to work with you. And then they have like this funny conversation, and he's like, well, I don't know, my requirement that my assistant forgot to put in there is you have to beat one of my minions. So she's like, done. And so they like hug, and he teleports both of them with the shadow magic to like the guild, and inside the guild they go to the training room, and then she like fights Ignis, and she kind of beats up on him, and then I think it's like a draw or something. And then she's like, I thought you were going to put me against your toughest minion. You insult me. And he's like, I don't know, man. Are you sure you want that? She's like, yes. And so he summons Beryl. And he's like, hey, whatever you do, just don't kill her, bro. And he's like, yes, master. And then they fight. And she's doing pretty good, considering. But she ends up having to use like the secret light sword technique and stabs the Ant King right in the chest, which just pisses him off. But it sounded impressive in the writing. And so then he loses it. He goes berserk, and he is going to go kill her. And then Jin is like step in and grab him and be like, hey, cut it out. And he's like, oh, yes, my king. I'm sorry. And they like bows and stuff. There's a lot of bowing. This book. He's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, it's okay. And then she's like, oh, fuck. There's no way I could have beat that guy. Like, he would have massacred me. Like, shit. And this guy bows to Jin. I'm like way over my league. And then at some point, they banter some more. And then the Jin's like, why do you want to be on guild so much? And she's like, something, something, something. And he's like, are you in love with me? And she's like, yes. And then we switch. And then we switch from there over to the American director. And he's super mad they didn't get Jin to come with them. And he's like talking. Oh, and so here we find out more stuff. So we find out that we don't get like a full rundown, but her powers don't work the way they say. She has the ability to see like where the powers come from and then like untap some of that. And like all hunters, their hunters come from like, I think she said the hereafter or like the afterlife or the other place or something. So like heaven. So like there's a conduit that opens up to these hunters, and it gives them the ability to like access superpowers essentially and skills and whatnot, be super strong and fast and whatnot. But with Jin, she looked into him and it was dark, which means he didn't access that powers. All his powers come from inside him. So he's like king level, which is the highest level, which is like the national. He's the same level as like the national ranked hunters. But she's like concerned because he has like this darkness in him, or like she just doesn't know. And so she freaked out and she's like, there's nothing I can do for him because I can't like open the conduit or whatever. And so he comes from himself. And so the director and the assistant talk about that, and then I think they go back to America, and they head down to like the 9th level basement because they're talking about how they got to get Jin because they're super like, we got to get this guy. He's like the best hunter in the whole world outside of like maybe like the guy we heard from earlier, who's the guild master for like the scabs. And so what are we going to do? And so then he starts telling a story about, hey, when America first realized there were hunters got summoned, and then there was like a dragon beast, and they had to go fight them, and they lost like several like A rank or S rank hunters just like trying to kill this thing. But the dragon dropped this rune stone that, and none of the Americans have like an no S ranks in America are like mage class, which is what Jin is. So none of them can really use this runestone for the ability, but Jin can because he's a mage. So we're gonna use this like super rare like S rank runestone from like a dragon king or something to get him to come over to America. And they're like, ooh. Back to Jin and Hunter Cha is that she's super embarrassed by everything that happened, and this is like after all that stuff went down. She's like back in her room and she's like, oh, I'm so embarrassed that I confessed. I don't know why I did that, but she's super happy about it. Meanwhile, the Knights Guild, they have a high rank, like an A rank, like almost an S rank portal that shows up in their province, which is Busan, I think they said. And they need help because they have no S ranks. And like if they were to go in there by themselves, they'd probably get beat because it's like the mana level is almost S rank. It's like the top of the A rank. And so they don't know what to do. And so then they're like, hey, you know what we should do? We should get that Jin guy to come because he has like his own guild and he's doing his own thing. So they show up to ask for a team up. And before that, Jin is like, hanging out with his sister, and he's like, hey, I was going to name my guild this. And she's like, that's a dumb name. And he's like, well, okay, what do you think I should name it? And they like go back and forth, and I think it's like moving forward or the power moving forward or something like that. It was Korean, so I don't really know. And also we find out that his mom gets a cell phone finally so that she can stay in contact with her chitlins. And so then Jin meets with the Night Guys, and they have a fun conversation, and he essentially like agrees. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll meet with you guys. We can go tomorrow. And they're like, cool, you're going to come back with us? He's like, nah, I'll just see you tomorrow at the gate. Help them with this A-rank guild, or hunt. And then the book ends with the sister going to school, and then some boys from her school are like down in the basement trying to get some workout material or gym equipment or something. And then there's a gate down there, and they're like, oh, shit. And they're like, oh, don't worry, it's just a gate. We can't go in and they can't come out, so we'll just go call the Hunters Association. They'll come take care of it. And one of the boys is like seeing, he like taps on the gate, and then it cracks. And then these orcs come out and massacre him. The end of book 4 of Solo Leveling. Damn, what a way to go. All right. So, as I said at the beginning of this, fantastic. The book continues to be excellent. Thoroughly enjoy it. And I got, unfortunately, only 3 more books out of the 11 to 13 that there are. So we'll see if I can track down their other audiobooks. If not, I don't know. I guess we'll just get back to it someday. But it's great. I highly recommend this series. It's super fun. It's like reading a shonen anime almost. But yeah, I like it a lot. It's really good. All right, cool. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and hopefully the way I release these things, next week we'll get through, I'll have Solo Leveling Book 5. Cool. Catch y'all later.